For myself, a somewhat historical connection to these pieces, which is fairly complicated in that some of them were done before, and they were pieces I was never quite happy with. And some of the objects in here are actually 20 years old, combined with objects that are very new, perhaps not less than a year old. I think in terms of titles, certainly the title of this show and oftentimes the title of the pieces, it comes afterwards. And it sort of pops into my head. I don't necessarily spend a lot of time sitting down and thinking about it, although it's something that's on my mind all the time while I'm working on something, you know, like, well, when it comes down to it, what am I going to call this? So it wasn't like Mars, now let me make an exhibit. It was more conceiving of the exhibit, the idea of aggression, which in terms of making art has probably gone on for at least 20 years in my life and in my work. From the original concept, you know, the walkway, the design of the walkway, design of the banners and that sort of thing was pretty specific to this space, and then the rest of the things had to work with it and be arranged within that. But I had been here before, and I'd been here maybe 2 or 3 times prior to doing this piece, so I had a good feeling for the space. And it's a nice space because it's essentially a big cube, and it's very easy to deal with. And it's also interesting because of the windows, architectural details, and all that sort of thing. The pathway, again, I've never done one like this before, but it relates to my past work, and it relates to this work in the sense that it's a domestic element. It, you know, creates a barrier, which is something, again, that I've used in my work. And it leads as a walkway through to take you from one place to another. Now, the 2 direct elements that are on the pathway, so to speak, are dealing with, you know, serious issues, you know, like the bombing of Cologne, human aggression, the fist holding an airplane, or penis, if you will, but, or both. But that act of aggression also is a domestic element. It's an element that everyone's familiar with. This needs to kind of line up. This needs to sort of follow. Right. You follow this and run into the ball pretty closely. And, the hand, just eyeballing it, I was thinking initially in the piece I had before was those things plus the masturbatory aspect of it. So that's kind of what that's about. And then bringing myself into all of these things, which is true in some of these pieces, is the idea that it's actually my hand. It's not somebody else's hand. It's not a hand that I modeled to look like a hand, but I wanted it to be my hand. And again, that's that idea of complicity. Banners, in many ways, are the most symbolic things here. And they, along with the walkway, use the space more than, of course, those objects would. But the banners, of course, is the idea of red, white, and blue, the walls taking up the white aspect. And the thought I had that probably since the 19th century sometime, most of the, it seems like the imperialist powers, the national colors are red, white, and blue. Now that's recycle, consume is the actual title of that. That's again a reconfiguration where I had the original piece was sort of on an IV, you know, it was a hanging situation. And simply the idea behind that, and it's a long time since I had actually modeled part of a figure, so that was kind of enjoyable to do. But the thought there is that as a culture, we can consume all this stuff, but as long as we recycle, we're okay. The thought isn't that, well, maybe we shouldn't consume as much. Maybe we're consuming too much, and that recycling is never going to solve the problem, although it makes us feel better. So anyway, you know, the idea is what's going in where and what's coming out where. Is it coming out of the person or is it going into the person? or is it sort of conflicting? This exhibit probably will be one time. However, I'm going to hang on to the banners. It's possible I could use those again in a similar situation. The walkway, of course, can be, if I decide to use that again in a piece for some reason, can be altered to virtually any space. I suspect the essence of it is that things really don't get better. They're cyclical. You may have better times, you may have worse times, but all of the time you have bad things going on, you have good things going on. So that's sort of, in a sense, supported my idea of a kind of equilibrium